Hello Vibe, so check this out. Imagine you have a brilliant idea for an app. It's a social network, but just for sharing pictures of your lunch. You call it Lunchagram. A few years ago you'd need to either learn to code, which takes forever, or hire a team of expensive developers. Fast forward to today and things are already different. You might open up an AI chatbot and start typing, but what if, in the very near future, you didn't even have to do that? What if you could just talk to your computer? Not just giving it commands, but explaining you want your app to have. Make it clean, minimalist, kind of like a calm Sunday morning. The main color should be a soft, off-white, and I want the buttons to feel really satisfying to press. And just like that, it starts building. This might sound like science fiction, but it's a concept that's getting closer to reality, and it's called vibe coding. The entire landscape of how we create things with computers is on the verge of a massive shift. For decades, programming has been this very rigid, logical process. You have to learn specific languages with strict syntax, where a single misplaced semicolon can break everything. It's a world of precision, commands, and unforgiving logic. It's powerful for sure, but it's also a huge barrier for most people. The creativity is there in what you build, but the process itself can feel more like solving a complex math problem than painting a picture. This traditional method has built the entire digital world we live in, from the operating system on your phone to the websites you visit every day. It's the foundation of everything. But now we're looking at a fundamental change in our relationship with machines. The rise of incredibly powerful artificial intelligence, specifically large language models or LLMs, is flipping the script. These AIs are getting shockingly good at understanding not just what we say, but what they can pick up on nuance, context, and even sentiment. This is the core idea behind vibe coding. It's about moving away from giving the computer a super detailed line-by-line blueprint. Instead, you're giving it a high-level creative brief, a description of the end goal, and the overall you're aiming for. It's less about being an architect with a ruler, and more about being a director guiding a very, very smart actor. The implications here are pretty huge. Think about it. If you no longer need to be fluent in Python or JavaScript to build a functional piece of software, what does that mean for creativity? It means the floodgates open. Anyone with a good idea, a small business owner, a teacher, an artist, a doctor, could potentially bring their vision to life without needing a technical co-founder or a huge budget. The friction between an idea and its execution could almost disappear. We're talking about democratizing software development on a scale we've never seen before. The power to create would no longer be held just by those who can speak the language of machines, but by anyone who can clearly express a vision, and that's a really exciting thought. So let's break it down. What really is vibe coding? At its heart, it's a new way of interacting with a computer to create software. Instead of writing precise, logical instructions in a programming language, you describe the outcome you want in natural, everyday language. But it goes a step further than just giving simple commands. Vibe coding is about conveying the feeling, the user experience, and the aesthetic you're going for. You're not just saying make a button, you're saying I need a sign up button here, but make it feel welcoming and not too aggressive. Maybe a soft blue, and when you hover over it, it should subtly glow to invite a click. The AI's job is to take that vibe and translate it into all the necessary code. This is a complete departure from the old way of doing things. Traditional programming is what you might call imperative. You are the emperor, giving direct, non-negotiable commands. You tell the computer to do every single little thing. Draw a box at these coordinates. Make it this exact color. When clicked, run this specific function. It's a micromanager's dream. Vibe coding, on the other hand, is declarative. You declare what you want the end result to, and you let the AI figure out the best way to get there. It's the difference between giving a chef a detailed recipe with exact measurements and cooking times versus just telling them you want a spicy, savory pasta dish that feels rustic and authentic. The secret sauce here is abstraction. Think about how you use your phone. You don't need to know how the touchscreen sensor works or how the processor renders the graphics to send a text message. You just tap the screen. That's a layer of abstraction. Vibe coding is like adding another, much more powerful layer of abstraction on top of the code itself. It hides all the messy, complicated stuff, the boilerplate code, the library imports, the syntax debugging, and leaves you with a clean, creative interface. The goal is to make software development feel less like engineering and more like a conversation with a super capable assistant who just happens to be an expert programmer. Ultimately, vibe coding is about lowering the barrier to entry for creation. It's about making the process more intuitive, more human-centric, and way faster. Imagine sketching a rough wireframe on a tablet and having an AI build a working prototype from it in minutes, all while you verbally tweak the colors, fonts, and animations. It's a paradigm where your creative intent is the most important input, not your ability to remember the correct syntax for a for loop. This shift could fundamentally change who gets to be a creator in the digital space, moving from a select group of trained specialists to, well, pretty much anyone with an imagination. Now, this idea isn't just coming out of nowhere. One of the biggest names pushing this vision forward is Andrej Karpathy. If you follow the world of AI, you know who he is. He's a foundational researcher in computer vision and deep learning, was the director of AI at Tesla, and is now back at OpenAI. Basically, when he talks about the future of AI, people listen. And recently, he's been talking a lot about this shift in programming. He has this vision of what he calls Software 2.0, where traditional human-written code, Software 1.0, is gradually replaced by code that is generated and optimized by neural networks. Vibe coding is the natural user interface for this new world. Karpathy's argument is super compelling because he's seen the power of these models firsthand. At Tesla, he led the team that built the autopilot system. A huge part of that system isn't programmed in the traditional sense. You can't write a million if-then statements to cover every possible driving scenario. Instead, they trained a massive neural network on vast amounts of driving data. The network, how to drive by observing. Karpathy sees this same principle applying to software development. Instead of a programmer writing the code, an AI will learn from all the code ever written on the internet and generate new, custom applications on demand. His credibility gives this seemingly futuristic idea a solid grounding in reality. He famously proposed the idea of a new kind of operating system, one that's powered by a large language model at its core. In this vision, you don't click on icons to open apps, you just talk to the OS. You'd say, "Hey, schedule a meeting with Sarah for tomorrow afternoon. Find a time we're both free and book a conference room. Oh, and before that, summarize my unread emails from her and draft a quick reply." The AI would understand the context, access different tools, calendar, email, and so on, and execute the entire workflow for you. This is vibe coding on a grand scale where the vibe is your personal productivity and the AI is the ultimate assistant. What makes Karpathy's perspective so important is that he's not just a theorist, he's a builder. He understands the nuts and bolts of both traditional software and modern AI systems. So, when he says that programming as we know it is going to be obsolete, he's not just trying to be sensational, he's making a prediction based on the trajectory of the technology he has helped create. He sees a future where the primary skill for a developer isn't writing perfect code, but rather being an excellent teacher, prompter, and curator for an AI that does the actual coding. It's a future where the human's role is to provide the vision, the goals, and the vibe. So how does this actually work? I mean, it's not just magic, even though it can really feel like it sometimes. The process of vibe coding relies on a powerful trio of technologies working together. First, you have the large language model, or LLM. This is basically the brain of the operation. Think of models like OpenAI's GPT-4 or Google's Gemini. These AIs have been trained on a mind-boggling amount of text and code from the internet. They've learned the patterns, syntax, and logic of dozens of programming languages, as well as the nuances of human language. When you give it a prompt, like, create a simple timer app with a big friendly display, the LLM is what understands your intent and formulates a plan. The second piece of the puzzle is the code generator. Once the LLM understands what you want, it doesn't just write a single block of code. It actually starts generating the real files needed for the application. This could include the HTML for the structure, the CSS for the styling, and the JavaScript for the functionality. It's kind of like a master chef who not only knows the recipe but can also instantly produce all the chopped vegetables, pre-measured spices, and simmering sauces. The generator takes the LLM's plan and turns it into tangible, executable code, often making decisions about which frameworks or libraries would be best to use for the task at hand. The third, and arguably most advanced component, is the smart agent. Now, a simple code generator might just give you a chunk of code that you then have to run yourself. But a true vibe coding system uses an agent that can take things way further. This agent acts like an automated developer. It can take the generated code, set up a development environment, install any necessary dependencies, run the code, and even debug it if it finds errors. It can then show you the working result, maybe in a web browser or a simulated phone screen. This creates a tight feedback loop where you can see the results of your Vibe almost instantly. This whole process is iterative. You don't just give one command and get a perfect finished app, you have a conversation. After the agent shows you the first version, you can give it feedback like, okay, that's a good start, but can you make the numbers much bigger? And change the alarm sound to something less jarring. Let's also add a lap button. The LLM takes this new input, the generator modifies the code, and the agent deploys the new version for you to review. This back and forth continues until the application perfectly matches the vibe you had in your head. It's a dynamic, collaborative process between human and AI. Let's ground this in some real-world examples. It's easy to talk about this in the abstract, but what could you actually build with vibe coding? The possibilities are pretty wild, honestly, ranging from simple tools to complex applications. For starters, imagine you're a teacher. You could say, build me a website for my history class. I need a page for announcements, a calendar for due dates, and a section with links to resources for each historical period we're studying. The vibe should be academic, but not boring, maybe like an old library with a modern twist. The AI could spin up a fully functional site in minutes, saving you hours of fiddling with a clunky website builder. Think about a small business owner, maybe someone who runs a local coffee shop. They could just describe what they need. I need a simple inventory tracking app. I want to be able to scan a barcode with my phone's camera, enter the quantity of coffee beans I have in stock, and get a notification when a particular type of bean is running low. Make the interface really simple and fast, with big buttons, because I'll be using it during a busy morning rush. Instead of paying thousands for custom software, they could get a tool perfectly tailored to their workflow, just by explaining their needs in plain English. The vibe here is speed, efficiency, and simplicity under pressure. What about for personal use? Maybe you're trying to get in shape. You could prompt, create a workout tracker for me. I want to be able to log my exercises, sets, and reps. Can you add a rest timer that automatically starts after I log a set? And I'd love to see a chart that shows my progress over time for key lifts like squats and bench press. The design should be dark, motivating, and energetic. This level of personalization, which would normally require a ton of coding, becomes accessible to everyone. The app is built not just for a generic user but specifically for you and your goals. These examples show the true power of vibe coding. It's not just about building clones of existing apps faster. It's about creating a huge, long tail of software, highly specific niche applications that wouldn't be commercially viable to develop with traditional methods. There are millions of problems out there that could be solved with a small piece of custom software, but the cost and complexity of development have been too high. Vibe coding could unlock all of that potential, allowing people to create their own bespoke tools for work, hobbies, and everyday life just by describing the vibe they need. This all leads to the big, looming question. If an AI can write code based on a vibe, are programmers going to lose their jobs? It's a valid concern, and the honest answer is, it's complicated. The role of the programmer is almost certainly going to change, and in a big way. The days of painstakingly writing thousands of lines of boilerplate code, fixing syntax errors, and manually connecting different software components are likely numbered. A lot of the tedious, repetitive work that defines a junior developer's job today might be automated away almost completely. So, some parts of the profession will definitely become obsolete. However, this doesn't necessarily mean programmers will disappear. Instead, their roles will likely evolve to a higher level of abstraction. The most valuable skill will no longer be the ability to write flawless code, but the ability to design robust systems, to think critically about a problem, and to effectively guide an AI to the optimal solution. Programmers will become more like AI directors, architects, and quality assurance specialists. Their job will be to provide the high-level vision, to break down complex problems into prompts the AI can understand, and most importantly, to verify, test, and secure the code that the AI produces. You still need an expert to know if the AI-generated code is efficient, secure, and actually solves the right problem. There are also pros and cons to this new paradigm. On the plus side, the benefits are obvious. Incredible speed, massive democratization of technology, and the potential for a Cambrian explosion of new and creative software. It could lower costs for businesses and empower individuals. It would allow developers to focus on the more interesting, creative aspects of problem solving instead of getting bogged down in implementation details. On the downside, there are significant risks. What about the quality and security of AI-generated code? It could have subtle bugs or vulnerabilities that are hard to spot. There's also the risk of over-reliance on these tools, leading to a generation of developers who don't understand the fundamentals of how software actually works. Ultimately, the future of coding will likely be a hybrid model. It's not a switch that flips overnight. For the foreseeable future, we'll see humans and AIs working together. The AI will handle the bulk of the code generation, while the human provides the creative direction, the domain expertise, and the critical oversight. The best developers will be the ones who master this new way of working, the ones who become expert vibe communicators. So, are you excited for a future where you can create an app just by describing it? Or are you nervous about what gets lost when we hand over the craft of coding to a machine? One thing is for sure, the conversation about how we build our digital world is about to get a lot more interesting.